Let's bring in Javed Ali. He is an associate professor at the University of Michigan, as well as a former senior counterterrorism official. Thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Teresa, nice to be with you. Thank you.
So everybody is talking about this story from so many different angles. From your perspective, sir, what is the thing that most people should be focused on when it comes to talking about the situation in the Middle East?
So the situation in the Middle East is unprecedented in the sense that the United States has never engaged in a military operation of this scope and scale against Iran. And likewise, Iran has never responded against attacks against it, either by the US or Israel, in the way we're seeing now. So we're only in a day 3 of this, and it's already so broad and so vast and so destructive. And tragically, this includes the loss of 6 US service personnel as well. And I think we are nowhere close to the end of this. I think both sides are trying to land a knockout blow against each other using the boxing analogy. And I'm not sure if either side has done that yet. And I think both sides are digging in for a long fight.
Yeah, it does very much seem that way. Just to go back to your previous point, obviously, to the detriment of most Americans, we don't have a true, complete understanding of most geopolitical situations, especially not what is happening in the Middle East. I don't think that most Americans, unfortunately, can tell you where these countries are, what channels they control, what their significance is. We just hear the Middle East and we think of it as one region that's all the same. But obviously, all these countries are so vastly different. So when you say there has never been something like this of this scale, dig into that a little bit for me, because people are going to say, wait a second, I remember what happened in Afghanistan. I remember there being military action in Syria. I remember Iraq. Why isn't it all the same?
So let's just focus on this question. So the tension that is now spilled out completely in the open in this very broad way between the US and Iran started going back to 1979 with the Iranian Revolution. Prior to that, from 1954 to 1979, when the Shah of Iran was in power, Iran was considered a strategic partner of the United States during the Cold War. That all flipped on its head during the revolution, and that's when the Islamic Republic of Iran was created. And since that time, Iran has been an adversary of the United States and Israel, responsible for the death of hundreds, if not thousands, of people through the use of terrorist attacks and insurgent attacks and in the wars in mostly Iraq, but even to a lesser degree in Afghanistan. And certainly the terrorism that groups conducted in Israel, all supported by Iran, attacks against US interests in Lebanon, also by Lebanese Hezbollah, also supported by Iran. So this goes back for several decades now. But the open military conflict we're seeing, this is what's so quantitatively and qualitatively different. And even when the US attacked Iran in January 2020, with the death of a senior military commander in Iraq, individual named Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a drone strike at the Baghdad airport. That was a major development. Iran didn't really retaliate significantly or didn't respond proportionally. That's my assessment. And then last summer, in the aftermath of the 12-day war between Iran and Israel and the US strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, also major development, but Iran was really restrained. It didn't react the way we're seeing now. So here we are 3 days into this current conflict. The US is now going to continue this campaign for days, if not weeks. That's what President Trump alluded to. And it looks really bad now. And I think it has the potential to be this bad and could get even worse if both sides use capabilities they haven't used against the other up until this point.
We know what the U.S. is capable of. We know the power that we have, or at least we have been told what the powers of the U.S. is. What does that look like in terms of Iran? I mean, and I ask that because we have seen the protests in the streets. We have seen the uprising of people who want to see the Ayatollah gone, which now he is. We understand from President Trump speaking today that senior leadership has been dismantled. So what are they really capable of? And what kind of military might are they capable of?
So even despite all the things you said, Teresa, which would appear to have an advantage for the US and Israel, the Iranian regime is still intact. There's a 3-person committee that is acting as the transitional government until these structures inside Iran can pick the next supreme leader. So the Islamic Republic is still intact as a regime, and the instrument of power in Iran is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which has about 100,000 plus, maybe 120,000 plus men under arms, and there are different units in this organization, the military organization known as the IRGC. But they are responsible for the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, the drones, the cruise missiles, terrorism, cyber operations. So those are all the things that Iran is capable of. And we're already seeing a demonstration of that on the conventional side. But when we start talking about terrorism, cyber operations, there are these units in the IRGC that could launch these attacks either unilaterally or working in partnership with other, certainly on the terrorism side, with other terrorist groups. And Iran hasn't done that yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if those orders or directives have been given. And so we might start to see terrorism from Iran against US interests, Israeli interests, not only in the region, but even further abroad. And that's where things would get even more dangerous than they are now.
President Trump talked today about Iran's increasing ability to manufacture a missile capable of reaching US soil. From what you know, from what you've read, from what you've been told, is that true?
Well, so I've been out of government since 2018. So obviously I have no insight into the most current intelligence about what my former colleagues know or don't know about Iran. Now, when President Trump made that statement, was it because it was actually backstopped by some level of classified intelligence that he was willing to reveal just slightly in a public way that suggests Iran actually is working on some kind of intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the continental United States? I don't know if that's a true capability, but Iran still has these ballistic missiles that can hit targets 1,000 miles away or 1,500 miles away because they've hit Israel. They've launched attacks on the other side of the Gulf as well. So that seems to be the current state of the threat. Whether Iran has an actual ICBM, I don't know if that's true or not. And if so, it would probably take them some time to actually put a weapon on that and launch it. But I just don't know if that's an actual threat or capability.
Yeah, but even the threat of that threat is jarring. Knowing their hatred for America, knowing their hatred for Israel. And to your earlier point, it seems like this is not going to be a short conflict. I mean, this is not going to be a week-long war and then we're all done.
Well, in Iran, we've seen, and going back to one of my earlier points about Iran taking the gloves off, just the way the US and Israel have taken the gloves off, Iran is trying to impose the highest amount of costs possible by not only attacking US interests in the region, which they have done, which again earlier led to the tragic death of the US servicemen, but they are attacking their neighbors in the Gulf because not only are there US military bases there and diplomatic interests, reporting tonight of the embassy in Saudi Arabia being hit with drones. But they're also, I think, part of the strategy is having the Gulf countries put pressure back on the White House to say the White House actually needs to stop the campaign because their interests are being affected, both physically, the commercial ties they have with Iran, the economic ties, and whenever this campaign ends, they are still going to have to live in the same neighborhood as Iran as well. Iran is a country of 92, 93 million people. It's not, the country isn't going anywhere. So this is something that is part of, I think, of the Iranian calculus right now, and that's why Iran is using all of their using a significant portion of their capabilities to land these attacks and force the Gulf countries to put pressure back on the White House.
We know that Iran as a country has access to an inordinate amount of wealth. I mean, an extreme amount of wealth. But in terms of military might, I mean, for lack of a inarticulate way of putting it, like, who do you think is going to peter out first here? Do you think the US will withdraw before Iran, or do you think Iran will give up before? I mean, who is going to wave the white flag first here, given your knowledge of how these things typically go?
Yeah, who's going to blink first? I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
what you're
exactly. In a
getting
stare
at.
down, right?
So the US and Israel have the quantitative and qualitative military advantage, even with the resources that are in the region right now. Now, there may be more directed into the region by President Trump. But that said, even if you take the status quo, the military advantage is on the US and Israeli side. But we've seen Iran has been able to withstand a tremendous amount of pressure. And take a significant amount of losses. I mean, the supreme leader was killed on Saturday morning, and yet Iran is still fighting right now, or the regime is still fighting. So I think what we're seeing is Iran's or the regime's threshold for pain is very high and might be higher than the Pentagon or the White House assessed. And they are using a lot of their military capability, which again is qualitatively and quantitatively less than the US and the Israeli side. But this could go on for a while. And going back to my point about Iran trying to impose costs, that's why they're being so aggressive with the attacks now. They are trying to kill as many people as they can, to be blunt about it, and cause as much damage as they can to change the political calculus back in the capitals of all these countries.
Before you leave me for the evening, and we'll let you get on with your night, I just have one question. Given all you know about threats globally, given all you know about the amount of people who want to see harm to us and our allies, what do you tell yourself at night so that you can sleep soundly, or that you kind of get through your day like a normal person? Because I've been consuming, I mean, obviously we're always tuned in here, in the news business, but over the last couple of days, it's been so finely tuned to what's happening. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm thinking words that I can't actually say, I don't think, on the internet or over the air. I mean, it's really kind of scary when you think about the impact of all of this.
So, Teresa, you might be asking the wrong person that question, because I came from this world in my government career, and this is the reality of what my colleagues and I sort of faced with. Not maybe these kind of stakes, but certainly in the terrorism world, you're dealing with threats all the time, and you just find ways to cope with the reality of what you're dealing with, but also try to be a normal person as well. Now, again, I'm not in government anymore. I haven't been for 8 years. I'm a college professor now, but obviously still aware of what's happening in the world. But I don't know. I just managed to figure out a way to process what's happening, but not let it completely overwhelm me, and just sort of be professional, either talking about it now in the classroom or even dealing with it in my former government roles as well. But again, I might be the wrong person to ask on that
I
question.
thought you were going to say something like, because the U.S. intelligence is the best in the world and X, Y, and Z. That's where I thought we were going to go with this now. But all right, Javed Ali, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate it.
All right, great. Thanks, Teresa.
All right, have a great evening.